Alright, so the war ended at the end of last section at Yorktown with Cornwallis surrendering to Washington. Now we're going to talk about the effects of the war, the legacy of the war, what it left on our country, why we won, the costs of it, and so on. But I want to read together this American story about one of the soldiers and how he felt when the war ended. So take a look at the American story. It says in 1776, 15-year-old Joseph Plum Martin of Connecticut signed up to fight for the Americans. He stayed with the Army until the war ended and rose in rank from private to sergeant. Among his experiences were the terrible winter at Valley Forge and winning the battle at Yorktown. One of the hardest things Martin faced was leaving the Army after the war was over. Many years later, he wrote about that day. He said, "There is as much sorrow as joy. We have lived together as a family of brothers for several years, setting aside some little family squabbles, like most other families. Had shared with each other the hardships, dangers, and sufferings incident to a soldier's life. Had sympathized with each other in trouble and sickness. Had assisted in bearing each other's burdens. And now we were to be parted forever." So a lot of soldiers felt this way. They were together with each other for 6 years, and now they were leaving, never to see each other again. There's no form of communication like we have today to stay in touch. So for them, it was a happy ending that the war was over and they were done fighting, but it was also sad because they were leaving these people that had been their family for years. Okay, so now we're going to talk to start with, we will find out why we won. What were the reasons? So what I want you to do is kind of go through and take a look at the Why the American Won section and find out why did we win, because we had a lot going against us. So take a few minutes, take a look at why we won, and just kind of keep that in your head, and we'll discuss them. What was the year that Cornwallis surrendered, Brett?
1783.
No,
Dixon. 1781.
Dixon? Shh, Dixon, come here. 1781. Did you say 81 a little bit later?
Yeah.
Okay. Cornwallis surrendered in 81. Well, then in 1783, so 2 years later, was when finally the last of the British soldiers left America, because it takes a while. You don't have enough ships to get them all to leave right at once. So 2 years later, finally the last of the troops left. Washington was able to say goodbye to all his troops. It was a sad goodbye. He cried. He had to leave because he was so upset that he was, it was sad for him. He was with these guys. It was like he was their father, their brother for so many years. Well, we win the war, and we had all this stuff going against us. What were some things that were going against us? What did we have going against us? Obstacles we had to overcome. Deb?
Unranked troops.
What's that?
Unranked.
Okay.
Troops.
What else? Brett?
Very little supplies or weapons.
Yep. Very little supplies and weapons.
The British were the most powerful army in the world at that time.
Best army in the world were the British. Weapons. Okay. Weapons, supplies. Oh, what about training and experience? It was very bad. At the beginning, we weren't trained. We had little experience. So now we're fighting against the best army in the world. All those obstacles going against us, and we won. So why did we win? Why were we able to win? Austin?
We knew the land a lot better.
Knew the land a lot better. Dev?
Better leadership.
Better leadership. Matthew?
We had different countries fighting with us.
Yep, we had help, allies. Abby?
We had motivation. We had more fighting.
Good. All right, let's start with the first one, better leadership. Why did we have better leadership? Because it sounds like we were very poorly trained, we were very little equipped. How come we had better leaders? Max?
The British generals were overconfident and cocky and made very bad decisions.
Yes, British generals were basically cocky, overconfident, made a lot of poor decisions because of this. And how about our generals? How come they were so good? Katie?
Well, they were very patient.
Patient. And what happened, when they lost? What did they do with those losses? Brennan? Learn from their mistakes. Decided to never give up. Developed a strategy that they knew would wear out the British. So they did, they figured out the weaknesses in their opponent and used them, and used their losses as their own advantage. So we had much better leadership. Someone said we had allies. We had foreign aid. What were the three main countries that helped us out? Hunter?
French,
Mm-hmm.
Germany, and Spain.
Good. And French, Germany, and Spain. France was a big, big help. Marquis de Lafayette, remember him? How did he help us out? Brett?
Train the troops.
He wasn't the big trainer, but he did some training. Dev?
General.
He was a general. What else did he help us with? What did he give us? Braden?
Money for supplies.
Money for supplies. He bought things for us with his own money. What did he persuade the King of France to do? John?
To send more troops.
Send a lot more troops. Good. Germany. They were what was you remember the name of the guy that really did train us?
Wasn't it DeKalb?
Not DeKalb. He came over and fought alongside of us as a general. Jacob? Von Steuben. He was the guy that really trained us and taught us how to properly hold our weapons, how to march as a group, work together. Okay, so we got a lot of help from our allies.
Wasn't he also the one that made it where we were in lines and then the first one?
Lines and columns.
Shoots?
Yes. Yep. Someone else mentioned we know the land. Knowledge of the land. This was like a home court advantage. We knew everything about the land. Yes, they won a lot of battles over in the coast, but they knew that area. But once the war started moving out west and in the interior, we knew it better.
Another one is we discovered guerrilla fighting.
That is good. Guerrilla fighting kind of goes in with knowledge of the land, too, because when we did this guerrilla fighting and had to do hiding and hit and run, we knew the area, especially the swamps and things like that. Good. And the last one was motivation. Why were we fighting? What were we motivated for? Austin?
We wanted independence.
We wanted independence. We had more of a reason to fight than they did. Our lives were at stake, yes, but so were our property and our dream of having freedom. So we had a lot more to fight for than the British did. So we were planning on keeping on fighting, and so we gained that. Okay. So, what really officially makes a war over? What kind of says it? This is it. Katie?
A treaty.
A treaty. Good.
Good job, Kara. Thank you.
Yeah.
See you later. Bye, Chris.
What was the name of the treaty that ended this war? Max?
Treaty of Paris.
Treaty of Paris of 1783. Because do you remember the other Treaty of Paris? Anyone know what war the other Treaty of Paris? Hey. That was weird. What was the other Treaty of Paris, Braden?
The French and Indian War.
French and Indian War. This one's the one of 1783. So, what I want you to do, a treaty, what it does is it gives conditions in terms of what each side, obviously the winners are going to get better conditions in terms under the treaty than the losers. So, I want you to take a look at the Treaty of Paris and kind of put down on each side, the British and Americans, what the British got out of it, what the Americans got out of it, or different terms they had to follow. Okay? So take a few minutes to do that. Start with the British. What were, let's see, the terms of the British? What conditions did the British maybe have to follow? Max, give me one.
Repay debts.
Yes, they would have to repay debts. Any debts that they owed to the Americans, they had to repay those. Katie?
They have to return any people who were captured.
Yep. Return any slaves that they had captured during the war. And that's, does anyone have anything else? Oh, one more. I don't know if it was in there. Yeah, Abby?
I have loyalist representation.
Oh, okay. We'll put that over on the American side, yeah. Anyone else? British? They had to leave, pretty much. I know it didn't say that in there, but they pretty much had to leave. Get out. It's not your country anymore. Okay. Now, the Americans, obviously, we won, so we have a lot better terms. Max, give us one.
Right to fish off Canada's Atlantic coast.
Good. Fish off Canada coast. And that's important because off that coast of Canada, Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, they have the best fishing waters in the world. So that's a good one. Jacob, S?
Independent.
What?
Independent.
Yep. That's pretty much what we really wanted. Independence. We gained our freedom. That's exactly what we wanted. Keegan?
They got land back that was seized from them.
Yep. So that kind of goes along with our boundaries. The boundaries of our country, are set. Abby?
We got the people back.
Yeah, any people, we were supposed to get any people back. Braden?
Return the seized loyalist property.
We had to return loyalist property. I'm just gonna shorten that. Any Max?
You had to repay debts too.
We also had to repay debt. Now both sides are supposed to follow the treaty and live up to it, and both sides didn't necessarily live up to it. So I'll put a red color here. Britain, did they repay their debt? Nope. Did they? That's you can't see that very well, can you? That's okay. It's red. Did they return their slaves? You don't have to cross these out because I don't want you to miss them. I'm just crossing them out. Did they return any slaves they captured? Nope. Did they leave the United States completely?
Yes.
No. What part did they refuse to give up? Dev?
Military outposts in the Great Lakes area.
Yep, they've had.
Detroit.
Yes, they had some forts out in Great Lakes area. They refused to give those up, so they stuck around for a little while. Americans, yes, we were able to fish off Canada's coast. Yes, our independence, boundaries set. We'll look at a map in a minute. Did we return all Loyalist property?
No.
No. Did we repay our debt?
No.
No. And we'll talk about the debt, how much money we owed after the war. So no, we didn't live up to it either. What we really wanted out of it right here was our independence and our land that we got. So big thing, we got our freedom.
Did we ever pay British in the long run?
I mean, we've paid them, yeah, but I believe we've never really had a zero debt. So anyone know what the debt is today?
Like 16 trillion.
It's over $16 trillion. It might be close to $17 trillion. That's a lot of money, and that's what we keep fighting over is the raising of that debt ceiling and how much the United States can spend. That's a whole nother topic. All right. Let me show you a map. Here is the new United States. Dark brown, which is over here, and I didn't mean to do that. I thought I had my pen on. Over here, we don't get. So we don't have Florida or west of the Mississippi. So we have everything to the Mississippi River. That's our new country. The makeup of our new country. So we're happy with that now, but eventually we will get this land to the west, and pretty soon. Louisiana Territory. Do you know what year we'll get that? It'll be 1803, so it's not much, in about 20 years that land will be ours.
I saw your mom running down the hall.
She's a little odd. Don't tell her I said that. Okay, so let's take a look at the costs of the war. And not always does cost mean money. Yes, it does in some terms, and we do have some money that'll pop up there, but it can mean other things as well. So take a look at the costs on 213 and see what we lost as far as soldiers, the amount of soldiers, what that looked like, how much money did we owe, and what other things did individual soldiers necessarily lose. Think about that too. All right, for the British. So start with the British. What were some costs for the British? What did they lose? Dev?
10,000 military deaths.
Yes. And the reason they say military deaths is because they really had no civilians over here, like we had civilians. So 10,000 military deaths. Do you find anything else in there? I guess there's something you could have thrown in there. Braden?
60 to 100,000 loyalists left.
Yeah, a lot of loyalists left because if you were a loyalist, why would you leave after the war was over? Why do you think you would leave? What? Austin? Well, you would get made fun of, yeah, but you might get a little more than made fun of.
Tarred and feathered.
You might not have been, yeah, you might have been a target. You might not want to be here because they probably would have treated you pretty bad. And making fun of is probably a nice term, Austin. So they would have been treated horribly. So they left. And where did they go? Not, some of them did, but most of them didn't go back to Britain. Matthew?
Canada.
They went up to Canada because there was British territory up there. So we got a lot that go up to Canada. How about the Americans? What was our loss? Abby?
25,000 something are dead and 1,400 just went missing.
Yep. So we have 25,000 deaths, 1,400 missing in action. Of the 25,000 deaths, 10,000 were died in camp from starvation, exposure, and so on. 8,500 died in British prisons. 7,200 died in battle, and then 1,400 missing. And then another 8,000 wounded.
That's about 35,000.
That's a lot of loss.
We still won the war.
We still won the war. And if you're wounded and you survived the war, what are you now left with? Amputation. You might have lost a limb. Infection, disabled for the rest of your life, not being able to work, and that during that time they didn't have disability, so it wasn't like you could receive a check because you have today we have disability where you can get that money. So they were lost with a lot. Bo?
And then is that some of them not get paid because we were in such debt?
Yes, the soldiers weren't able to be paid like they were promised. So they were left with no, because we were in such debt, so they didn't get paid, but the government did give them something. What did the government give these soldiers, Austin?
Land out west.
They gave them land out west. So like, here's a certificate. You can go get yourself some land out west, this new land we have. But most of them didn't go take the land. What did they do with their land certificates, Katie?
They sold it.
They sold it so they could get money because they needed food, they needed to survive. Okay, what was our debt? Keegan? $27 million debt. That's beautiful compared to what we are today, but back then that's still a heck of a lot of money.
That's like,
Gonna be difficult to pay off, you know. So, looking at this, you know, we lost a lot more than they did, but we gained a lot more too.
How much did they owe us?
Well, nothing. They had a debt too, because they had a lot. They had a debt too, but that goes to them. Now, here's the thing. We did lose all that. That's a small period of time. That is what we lost during the war, a 6-year war. But over a few hundred years, we have been free. So out of 6 years, we lost 25,000 people, and more actually. People lost pay, we had a debt, but now 300 years of freedom. I would say it kind of equals it out, don't you think? Maybe not even equals, it's much better. I'd rather be free now than being under the rule of someone else. Abby?
What do they mean by debt? Like, who do we owe the
Well, we had to pay, we borrow money from people such as France that lend us money so that we can have weapons and supplies and things like that. So we owe money, and all that stuff costs. The things that we outfit them with, the weapons they use, the supplies, the food that they eat, all of that costs money, and we borrowed it from other people. So we pay them back. We have to. We're supposed to. Dev.
Even though we won the war, it still seems like British has a lot of land up north.
Yes. Well, that's Canada. Yeah, they still have a lot of land, and that's Canada, and they'll keep their Canada land for a while.
Canada's still, isn't the Prime Minister of Britain still Canada's Prime Minister?
Yeah. Yep. And we talked about that last year in Canada. Good. We do have one more slide, but I'm going to wait till tomorrow. That is, like, now that the war's over, it's not all like, all right, here we are, we're a country, we have to do something about it, we have issues that we have to deal with, so we'll talk about that. Yeah, we have to make a government, so we'll talk about that tomorrow.